Hi again then guys, and welcome to another very special specific vehicle review for Gran Turismo Sport. This is one which has been requested numerous times since I reviewed the Porsche 919 Hybrid LMP car for obvious reasons. It's alongside the Porsche one of two very significant new prototypes to be featured in the game, but also as such is the direct rival, more so than any other car in the game, to the Porsche. Speaking of rivals, well, you might want to stick around on Sunday, but that's all I'll say about that. Now, as far as this car goes, there are certain ways that I would definitely say that it's better, at least for me, than the Porsche. Others, it's a little bit more open to interpretation. Well, to be fair, in every way it is, but as I said, at least for me. As far as engine capacity, to start off the specs, it is larger than the Porsche. The Porsche 919 has a 2-litre petrol burner, this one's got a 2.4. The power is around a similar level, as you'd assume. That is of course what the regulations dictate. It's got 506 horsepower, weighs 875 kilos, both of those of course without adjusting the power and weight levels, and the torque is 367 pound-feet. But, as I mentioned in the review episode for the Porsche 919, those specs are very limited in their scope because they do not factor in the boost that you get from the hybrid system, because you're actually running way more power and way more torque, just not necessarily all the time. Like the Porsche, you have part-time all-wheel drive, and once again you can definitely feel that aiding you in certain corners in particular. Now, I mentioned earlier on in the video, of course, that there was one specific way in which, for me at least, this Toyota seemed better than the Porsche. And I'm not talking about numbers, because as we've seen from rivals time and time again, numbers are not the be-all and end-all. But, for me, the handling on this Toyota is better than the Porsche. Now, I know that will be controversial. Some people will prefer the Porsche, and this I will say. The Porsche is a far more exciting prospect. When it comes to Toyota versus Porsche, there aren't that many people on the side of Toyota as far as being more exciting as a brand. There are fans, of course. I don't dislike Toyota, they're an amazing manufacturer, but for sheer exotic appeal, Porsche pretty much has that game covered. Now, with that being said, I would say the 919 is the more exciting new vehicle of the two. Of course, for obvious reasons, some of which we discussed in that car's episode. This one, though, is a very significant one also, because with Porsche, it's a totally new car to the game, whereas with Toyota, it's not just a new car, but it's in effect taking up the mantle of an entire franchise worth of fandom. Because with Porsche, they're the new guy, they're the cool kid from out of town who everyone wants to talk to. Toyota is a company which has always been a part of Gran Turismo, and their prototypes have always been a part of Gran Turismo, even as far back as Gran Turismo 2, as we saw earlier on today even, with my review for the GT1 road car. They have always had a strong prototype presence in the Gran Turismo franchise. And in some of the games, the GT1, the TS050, could be said to be the best car in the game. You could make an argument for that. On GT2, as far as I'm concerned, it definitely is. On GT3, perhaps not quite as dominant, but it's definitely up there with the 787B, the Polyphony Formula Gran Turismo, and of course its arch nemesis on Gran Turismo, the R390. On GT4, 5 and 6 even more so, it kind of lost its edge because there were so many other machines, especially the Group C's coming in there, the Sauber C9, stuff like that. Of course is going to overshadow the car from the shiny new toy point of view, but the GT1 has always remained a very strong competitor. Now, although you may not have thought of this, and some people will have, Gran Turismo Sport marks the first Gran Turismo occasion where we lose the GT1. We don't have it in the game anymore. And we've had it for such a long time that we've taken it for granted. It's a fantastic car. And so is the Minolta, the 88CV. And so, in a different way, is the Toyota 7, the Can-Am race car. But again, that's not totally applicable. It just tends to get put up against them because people think they look similar. But in particular with the GT1, that was such a benchmark for Toyota. It almost became the second Japanese car to ever win the Le Mans in real life. But unfortunately, due to tyres, it didn't. I believe, if memory serves, it had a blowout near the end of the race, or at least it was some point in the race, but it was leading for a time. So it's a significant car in the real world and in the game. The Toyota TS050, of course, brought the Toyota brand to a new level, in GT6 in particular. Very popular car. Again, they don't factor in the hybrid power, in particular, that effectively, which allowed it to be quite OP in PP level racing, which it probably shouldn't have really been running in, but people loved it for that reason. Then we skipped over the TS40, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, and went straight to the TS50. This car has huge stakes really to live up to, because the TS30 is a brilliant newer generation Gran Turismo prototype, and a very OP one as well. The GT1 is a stalwart of the Gran Turismo franchise, and for sheer power and sheer straight line performance, the Minolta is a difficult prototype to beat. It's so good and so fast. Now this car is not as fast as a GT1 for sheer top speed. It doesn't have the monstrous power of a Minolta, but what it does have is a great all-round package in a similar way to the Porsche. So I have no doubt, once again, like with the 919 Hybrid, that if you were to port the GT1 and the Minolta into Gran Turismo Sport with updated physics, graphics, etc., but also with the updated performance and how realistic the performance is on GT Sport, I have no doubt that the TS50 would annihilate them around a technical circuit. In a straight line, obviously not. But that's the beauty of these cars, and also, for the moment at least, one of the most important things about the track selections of GT Sport. The tracks are far more technical than high speed. And so overall, although the obvious comparison to make is against the Porsche 919, I would actually say that the bigger thing that this car has done well in living up to is actually its own brand, and its predecessors in particular. But that's it overall for this particular review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.